Hey guys, Jake here of Downtown Rams. Before we get into the show, I want my listeners to check out Thrive Fantasy. Thrive Fantasy has simplified daily fantasy by only asking you about top-tier talent. They have over $50,000 in guaranteed prizes for Week 1 of the NFL season. All you have to do is head on over to your app store, whether it be Apple App Store or the Google Play Store, and grab the Thrive Fantasy app today. Sign up and enter our code DTSN and receive an instant 100% match on your deposit up to $250 now until Sunday. This offer is only for a limited time, so make sure you get it while it lasts and prop up.
Aaron Donald creates the fumble. Goff goes crashing into the end zone.
It is intercepted by Jalen Ramsey.
Robert Wood, touchdown, LA!
Picked off by John Johnson.
Caught, touchdown, Tyler Higbee. It's Michael Brockers who gets there.
A'Shawn Robinson.
Cooper Kupp plucks it out of the air.
Taylor Rapp, who had one taken away, will take this into the end zone.
Henderson with a good run and a first down, still on his feet.
Safety in the arms of Leonard Floyd.
Up top, touchdown, Van Jefferson.
Terrell Lewis. Everett in stride. Wow!
Hit behind the line. Terrell Burgess, 26.
Gets by some Hopkins at the goal line and in for his second touchdown. Malcolm Brown into the end zone.
Abu Khan with the strip sack.
Picked off by Troy Hill.
Akers with a stiff arm. Akers into the end zone. Cam Akers.
LA will play for the Lombardi.
Welcome back, guys, to episode 310 of the Downtown Rams podcast. I'm your host, Jake Ellenbogen. Joining me, as always, is Alexis Kraft. But this time, this is our first show of the 2020 season, our first preview show for a game. That's right, we're going to have football. The Dallas Cowboys are headed to Los Angeles to play in the brand new SoFi Stadium. And with that being said, we got my friend on here, Cowboys analyst for Pro Football Network, Dalton Miller. How's it going, Dalton? Pleasure to have you on the show. It's been a while, man. How is everything?
Man, it feels good to be back. It feels good to have football back. I'm really excited for the Dallas Cowboys to come in to the new SoFi Stadium, which has so much to do with Jerry Jones getting the LA Rams back to Los Angeles instead of, where they came from. But I think that more than anything, I'm just really excited to have football back as a whole. This past Thursday night was a lot of fun. The product was better than I think all of us expected. So I'm just ready for Sunday night, man.
Me too. It's going to be exciting. It's going to be interesting, and it's probably going to be, a very interesting and intense game. But just kind of to go over, the injury report really quick. We'll start with the Rams. Running back Daryl Henderson is a full go as of right now at the time of this recording, and he's intended to actually play in the game. And then we do have A'Shawn Robinson and Terrell Lewis both out on the non-football injury list. So, Jake, what are your thoughts on that?
Well, first off, it's good to see Daryl Henderson got a little nicked up in one of the scrimmages and was actually held out of the second scrimmage. So it's good to see him who got a little nicked up. He's going to be able to go. A'Shawn Robinson and Terrell Lewis are huge losses, but Dalton, looking at this Cowboys side of the injury report, Lyle Collins is on IR, as well as Sean Lee, Chidobe Awuzie, Amari Cooper, both full participants with knee and hamstring issues, respectively. Luke Gifford, the linebacker, was limited, and Jordan Lewis has not participated in practice. So how do you see this shaking up? Do you see everybody participating on Sunday night, or, do you think somebody like Lewis is probably going to be out?
Yeah, I know Lewis's game status is already out, and then you've already talked about, Lyle Collins and Sean Lee will be out for the game as well. It looks like everybody else was a full participant on Friday between Awuzie, Amari Cooper, and Luke Gifford. So that'll be nice to have those three guys, especially, Amari Cooper having that three-headed monster of a receiving core that the Cowboys have. That's going to be really big because it's not going to be easy for everybody to get open against this Rams secondary if all three of those guys are not healthy.
Yeah, totally. And, just going into week one, Dalton, I want to get your thoughts on both teams, just kind of a broad premise of where you think they're at, and maybe kind of their broad projection for the end of the year.
Yeah, so, from the outside looking in at the Rams, first of all, I see a team that has, some pieces in the secondary that are pretty nice, and they can kind of keep up in that respect. They have a couple guys, on the defensive line when it comes to rushing the passer that have always had a little bit of upside, but have never really been able to put it together. I was personally really excited for Terrell Lewis. It stinks that his knees are as much of an issue as we, didn't hope for, but maybe believed them to be coming out of Alabama. But he's a super productive guy when he is actually on the field. For me, on the defensive side of the ball with the Rams, it all comes down to, are the linebackers just going to be adequate enough to not be a complete liability? You have some really young guys there, some guys who, aren't the most athletic linebackers at the end of the day, very opposite of where the Cowboys sit in that respect. But when it comes down to it, you guys still have the best player in the NFL on that defensive line, somebody who requires double teams. And so it's going to be a lot of fun to watch him go up against Zach Martin. But I think at the end of the day, it all kind of comes down to, is that offensive line going to give, this run game and the passing attack, particularly when it comes to the play action passing attack, are they going to give Jared Goff enough time and open up enough rush lanes for this team to really be successful offensively? And I think that's where, for the first time in, the era there with the new coaching staff, I think that the offense is a little bit actually behind the defense. So I think it's kind of like that 8-8 to 10-6 type, fighting for a wild card there in a really tough NFC West. Where do you guys look at, when you look at the Rams?
Yeah, I think it's a great question, Dalton. I think this is a team with a third place schedule that I think can go 11-5 this year. And I think, really, I think they have a big, I think they have a high ceiling. And the reason I say that is because we don't know how this Brandon Staley defense is going to be. There's going to be a lot of moving, parts. I really like the idea of just having really everyone interchangeable in the secondary. I don't know if you've been hearing, but Jalen Ramsey is going to play some safety this year. They are going to mix guys up. They're going to basically confuse the hell out of other teams. With that being said, though, they also went out and they put a premium on stopping the run and guys that could set the edge. As we know, Clay Matthews struggled with that. Connor Barwin struggled with that. Two guys that have recently been on the Rams. So to go out and get a Leonard Floyd that, maybe he's not quite the pass rusher. Obviously, he's not compared to, Dante Fowler. But his ability to set the edge and, stay home and, defend the run is going to be, something this defense really needs. They're not going to play much in the base 3-4 at all. It's going to be, mainly nickel for the most part. So they're linebackers, and we've had Jordan Rodriguez, who is, kind of the star reporter for the Rams right now. She explained, the Rams really, the linebackers aren't as big of an issue as it looks on paper. Because the Rams aren't going to be really utilizing linebackers as much as they would in a base 3-4 scheme. They're going to be playing that about a third of the time. And, because of that, with the guys that they added, they're really going to sell out to stop the run. But then that secondary with Jalen Ramsey and, the emergence of Troy Hill last year and Darius Williams, the guy they like so much, they let Nickel Roby-Coleman leave. This is a defense that, I've been saying it, they could end up being a top 5 defense in football this year if things work out. And I think that's kind of, right now I have them at 11-5. I think this is a top 3 offense in the league this year. I think there's just too many weapons. Jared Goff is going to have a better offensive line than he did last year. And regardless, they have more weapons, in my opinion. So I think there's so much there. The fact that they have the third place schedule really helps. So Dalton, I have 11-5 right now. And this is what I'm going to be, that's going to be my prediction. but I won't be surprised if they go 13-3 again, or, even 14-2. Things obviously have to go perfect for that to happen, but I wouldn't be shocked, because Sean McVay has shown ever since he's gotten the Rams, it's been kind of a magical ride. Only 1 year, you go to the playoffs, you take a team that went 4-12, the year prior, and then the next season you're in the Super Bowl. So I don't doubt Sean McVay at all.
Yeah, I mean, I don't blame you. No, I mean, just real quickly, yeah, Sean McVay is there. There's no questioning that he is a fantastic offensive mind. For me, it was just more of the, unknown of just how good that offensive line is going to be, because at the end of the day, Jared Goff is, he's something that I really looked into when I was writing up this game, for the preview for the Cowboys defensively, is that, Jared Goff statistically had a worse year last year than he did years prior, but he was actually, about half of an entire league better when it came to performing against pressure. He went from 30th in the league, I believe, to right around, 14 to 16 area against pressure last season. So he has gotten better in that respect. And honestly, I'm looking forward to see, how he is able to continue to progress in that area, because that was one of, if not, the biggest, weakness in his game, other than really just not being, that modern day mobile quarterback. He still has obviously all the arm talent in the world. And if that offensive line can really hold up, then we are looking at a team that offensively can win 11 to 13 games.
Yeah, and I'm curious to hear your thoughts on this, because Jake and I were just on a Cowboys podcast, and they were kind of talking about how the right tackle position right now for the Cowboys is kind of in question. So I just wanted to hear your thoughts on that, and how you think the right tackle is going to play in the upcoming game.
Yeah, when the Cowboys signed Cam Irving, who's the now the backup to Lyle Collins, who's out, I really loathed the idea of him ever having to play, period. And then when I found out, that Lyle Collins came into camp and was already, out of shape, and things weren't kosher there. And then now for him to be fighting injury, it's just not good in general, because you don't want to see your starting right tackle, somebody who was probably a top 5 right tackle in the NFL last year. He was fantastic. He might have been the best offensive lineman on the Cowboys outside of Zach Martin, obviously. But he was phenomenal. And I think that with Cam Irving, they're going to have to throw a lot of help on the right side of that offensive line, which is scary to think of, because you do also have Aaron Donald on the inside that you're going to have to, really work on to keep him, out of Dak Prescott's face as well. So I think that if the Rams are going to, subdue this Cowboys offense, which we talk about the Rams' weapons, the Cowboys' weapons are at a completely other level than, in my opinion, anybody in the NFL outside of, the Kansas City Chiefs. So I think if anything is going to go wrong with this offense, it will be that right side of the offensive line for the Cowboys. And like I said, when I watched Cam Irving when they signed him, I liked absolutely nothing of what I saw. So I'm that's my biggest worry for this game.
Yeah, I don't even know how he's starting at right tackle. I mean, this is somebody that really kind of showed you he didn't have a spot, interior. So I don't know how putting him at right tackle is going to do him any good. Yeah, that was really a questionable thing. I had to do a kind of a double check when I was looking at your depth chart. I was like, wait, is that the Cam Irving? I mean, don't get me wrong. He was supposed to be like a solid prospect coming out of Florida State, but I don't know. He doesn't, I don't think, to me, he has it in this league, but we will see in that regard. And I think, what's very similar about this, it's really interesting. The first thing I thought of is he's not quite the same, because, the guy that I'm about to talk about, one, he's on the Rams. He's a backup right now. But he was a rookie last year, Bobby Evans. And, the Rams had to kind of scheme around the fact that they were playing a rookie right tackle when Rob Havenstein went down. They were playing him against Khalil Mack, of all people. So when Bobby Evans came in and played against Khalil Mack, they pretty much had Tyler Higbee chip Mack the entire game. I would imagine there's going to be something along those lines with the Cowboys. I think they're, like you said, they're going to have to help Cam Irving out. And I'm not even saying that Leonard Floyd can be an all-world type of player. But I haven't been totally sold on the move of Leonard Floyd, except for the fact I know he's going to help in the run defense department. But at the same time, Leonard Floyd with Aaron Donald in the middle, and now he's with Brandon Staley, who was his coach, back with Fangio. That intrigues me because I think Leonard Floyd's last year, in that defense that Chuck Pagano coached, I don't think that was to his strength. I don't think that fit many players on that team's strength. But, now that he's back with the Fangio type scheme, I'm really intrigued to see him go, especially now he gets a kind of a golden opportunity to really showcase himself on Sunday Night Football against somebody that's just, like you said, I mean, you loathe the idea of him starting. He's kind of a replacement level player at this point, and you're putting him at right tackle. So, we'll see in that regard. I think that's going to be a huge thing. If the Rams are able to, basically attack the right side, and then obviously Aaron Donald's able to win his matchups, I think the Rams won't have a problem getting to Dak. Which brings me to my next question. Who do you think has a better game in this one, Dak Prescott or Jared Goff?
Well, at the end of the day, I just have to go with who I think is the better quarterback. And for me, the better quarterback, right now, based off what we've seen, the past year or so, is Dak Prescott. Now, I would not have said that before last season. Dak Prescott is somebody who had a lot that he had to get a lot better at when it came to, between 2018 and 2019. And he really did that. And it all kind of came down to his work with John Kitna and Tom House, really working on getting his footwork settled down a little bit, and staying, with a nice solid base. And I think, once he did that, things started to really come to him. And I think with more and more reps offensively, he's really kind of figured out how to maneuver away from pressure and buy just enough time to get the ball off, because he still holds onto the ball. I think in, the top third of the NFL when it comes to really taking downfield shots and holding on, from the snap. But he did a really good job last year of he went from like 56 sacks to I think 24 or something like that. And it was a lot of getting rid of the ball with the ability to actually deliver a pass without it being inhibited by, not working, not being able to step through the throw with guys coming in his face. So he did really do a good job of improving there. And then just his mobility is so huge, being able to get out of the pocket, make throws on the run, particularly when he's rolling out to his left. So I'm really excited about that performance. Plus, when you have weapons like, Blake Jarwin is a really good receiving tight end. He's not much of a blocker, but he is a really good seam weapon. And then you have Mike McCarthy, who spent a year in the lab, which he obviously needed to do after getting fired in Green Bay. And then you have all those receiving weapons, plus Tony Pollard and Ezekiel Elliott. I just don't see a world where any starting level quarterback has bad games with all of those weapons.
Yeah, and I'm glad that you brought up Ezekiel Elliott and Tony Pollard, because that was going to be my next question, is how do you see them faring in this upcoming game? I mean, how many carries do you see Zeke having and potentially, Tony against the Rams? And especially with all the nonsense on Twitter lately about how Aaron Donald is average against the run. Do you think that the Cowboys should be worried about Aaron Donald and the rest of the Rams defensive front, or do you think that Zeke and Tony are going to have a good game?
Yeah, so there's this weird narrative, not about Aaron Donald being a bad run defender, because we've all seen what he's been able to do against the run, and I'm a very analytically driven guy as well. But sometimes you do just have to watch and see the type of impact that somebody has against the run, and that's the type of impact that Aaron Donald has against the run. We saw this kind of, with Malik Collins on the defensive line for the Cowboys last year. There is a point where penetration does hurt your run defense. Aaron Donald doesn't get that way very often. He makes a runner get off of his red line and where he really wants to go. So Yeah, I'm worried about Aaron Donald in the run game, and there's another narrative going around that, oh, well, if you just run right at Aaron Donald, that's the way to beat Aaron Donald. No, that's not the way that you beat Aaron Donald. The way that you beat running against Aaron Donald is you don't run at Aaron Donald, and that's what the Cowboys are going to have to do if he is not lined up against Zach Martin offensively. If he is lined up against Zach Martin, I feel confident in that because I've seen those two go at each other for years now, and they're both going to get their licks in against each other. I hope they do line him up against Zach Martin a lot because that is the best matchup one-on-one that you will see between any two players the entire season. You get it in week one on primetime.
It's a great point. And, I'm glad you said that. And, a lot of those clips that they were showing, on Twitter, and for people, we do have listeners that aren't on Twitter, but for those that are, they were showing these clips where like Donald, he broke through and then the other guy did, like, for instance, Sebastian Joseph Day didn't maintain his gap assignment. And it's like, oh, well, that's Donald's fault. It's like the fact that Donald even had a chance at stopping the runner there. That is not his fault. So I did find that narrative very funny. I'm glad, you kind of had the same reaction there. And, people maybe not the Rams fans, and I don't think the Cowboys fans, but a lot of people seem to forget that the Rams and Cowboys played last year in a game where, if it goes differently, the Rams win that football game and, maybe they make the playoffs. I mean, they won 9 games that year. They got eviscerated, and it was not just Zeke Elliott. Tony Pollard had his way against the Rams, the other Memphis running back that went in that draft class. But what I want to ask you, what do you expect out of the Rams in this game as far as the running backs? Because they have, 3 good backs, in my opinion. I think Cam Akers is going to be a star. I think Daryl Henderson could end up being a star. I think you're looking at Henderson in the same mold as, the way Cleveland Browns are going to use Kareem Hunt this year. I think that's going to be his role. Cam Akers, to me, is kind of the all-around back. He's going to be very similar to what Todd Gurley was. When he finally gets everything going, I think he can be like Todd Gurley in 2017. And then Malcolm Brown, I think, is just a model of consistency. At the end of the day, you ask Malcolm Brown to go out and run the ball 20 times, he's going to go over 100 yards more often than not. He's a very underrated back. He's good for this room, a very young running back room. They also added a running back right off of a practice squad, like immediately when it started, from the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, Raymond Calais. I don't know if he's going to be in this game, but if he is, you have to watch out for that speed. Maybe they use him, a few trick plays here and there. And then Xavier Jones at SMU. It's not a guarantee that he suits up, but if he does, he's also a very impressive running back. So, how do you see, at least in this game, how do you see the carries going distributed throughout, those guys?
Honestly, I don't know. I hope it's a lot like the Week 15 game last year where there was only 14 carries overall, because that means that you guys got down early and stayed down. So that would be fantastic for me. But I think the natural breakdown would be probably close to a 33-33-33 split when it comes to percentages between Brown, Akers, and Henderson if, Henderson is back to being fully healthy. If not, then it's probably going to look more like a 40-40-20 split or a 50-40-10 split, something like that. But I was a fan of Cam Akers coming out. I don't think that'll ever be Todd Gurley, just because Todd Gurley was probably the most talented running back in the league, back in 2016, 2017 timeframe before his knees really started to give out on him. I'm a fan of Cam Akers. Like you said, he's an all-around back. He had nothing to work with when it comes to that offensive line at Florida State. He is somebody who can make something out of nothing. And we've seen, in the 2018 playoff game, the LA Rams were able to do whatever they wanted to in the rushing game against the Dallas Cowboys. So, hopefully with more of a 2-gap scheme defensively for the Cowboys, they're able to, allow those athletic linebackers to roam free and to the football a little bit more to kind of thwart this rushing attack. But I think that it's more of an even split early on. until they really start to get a feel for who is that, ace back for them this year, because it might take Cam Akers a little bit of time to realize that, he has room to run in the NFL, which would be the first time since high school.
Yeah, and you kind of touched on this earlier a little bit about the Aaron Donald, Martin matchup. But is there a particular Ram or Cowboy offensive player matchup this week that you're really excited to see, or that you think is going to be a real battle?
So I already kind of know what to expect against, Amari Cooper and Jalen Ramsey and Michael Gallup and Jalen Ramsey. I'm really excited to see how often, if at all, Jalen Ramsey lines up against CeeDee Lamb, especially with CeeDee Lamb, aligning in the slot most of the time for the Cowboys offense. I think that's where they're going to have him most often. If they do go, with Jalen Ramsey playing a little bit of safety, I think that, this Rams defense, under the new tutelage of the defensive coordinator, coming from the college ranks, he's probably going to run a lot of two high quarters type stuff, match coverages in zone. And so on those situations, when number 2 goes vertical, you're going to see the safety having to match up man to man against the slot receiver. So you're going to see a little bit of Jalen Ramsey against CeeDee Lamb in those situations if he does play a little bit of safety. So I'm interested to see whenever those two line up against each other. I'm going to have one eye on that offensive line, defensive line matchup, but I'm also going to be watching CeeDee Lamb versus Jalen Ramsey because, as we all know, Jalen Ramsey should already be a Cowboy. And that's someone who I'm always keeping my eye on.
Yeah, so with that being said, you talk about these teams. Do you see any of them generating any turnovers? We know Jared Goff can, make a poor throw here and there, doesn't always throw, step into his throws, kind of has, issues with mechanics. I mean, we haven't seen Jared Goff in 2020, so, that could have been corrected. I know he worked on that. And then, Dak Prescott sometimes can make, a mistake, trying to extend a play, not living to play another down. Do you see, Rams secondary and a Cowboys secondary? I think, they're both, some really key players on both sides. Do you see any of these teams, generating any turnovers?
Yeah, I think that's been a big emphasis for the Dallas Cowboys defense this year. And I think with these, two defensive schemes that we think we're going to see, obviously the defensive coordinator for the Rams, his name escapes me, but I know that he is under the tutelage of Vic Fangio at the NFL level with Denver last year. I think you're going to see a lot of too high stuff. There's going to be a lot of disguising coverages. And for the Cowboys, this is the first time in, since the Rob Ryan defensive, coordinator era, where they are actually going to be disguising coverages and doing a lot of different things, not just running a cover 1 and cover 3 heavy scheme. So, yeah, I do see a couple turnovers in this game. I see a couple big plays on both sides of the ball because of the new schemes defensively. These match-based coverages tend to give up bigger plays and also take the ball away a little bit more often. So, yeah, I think we'll probably see 1 or 2 between the two of them. I don't think that we're going to see, a game where it's 4 or 5 because I think that these offenses are good enough to where they're not going to, habitually turn the ball over. Although I will say Cam Akers coming out, he was a really talented player. He did fumble the ball, once every, I think it was like 75 touches or so. So he's always one who might give the ball up here and there. And Zeke Elliott, too. Zeke can fumble the football, too.
Yeah, good point on both those guys there. And just looking at the Rams secondary, I know Rams fans are pretty split on their thoughts, I should say, on the secondary. Some people think that the Rams secondary is pretty solid. Some think that it's shaky other than Jalen Ramsey. We also, kind of have a new thing going on with our safeties. So I'm just kind of curious about your overall thoughts on the Rams secondary, but also kind of your thoughts on the Cowboys secondary, because there's some new faces there too.
I really like the Rams secondary overall. John Johnson's a fine free safety. Taylor Rapp is somebody who should be a Cowboy, either him or Juan Thornhill over over Tristan Hill. I mean, that was the biggest no-brainer of all time, and the Cowboys still managed to screw that one up. I think Troy Hill is better than people give him credit for. And then obviously Jalen Ramsey, when he is on, is a top 3 cornerback in the NFL, if not the absolute best cornerback in the NFL. So I think that secondary is absolutely fine at the end of the day. Plus, you guys do also have guys like Kenny Young and David Long who aren't, absolute liabilities in the secondary. And you also have Terrell Burgess, who I was a massive fan of coming out last year. I had a 2nd-round grade on him. I really, really liked him both in the slot and, playing some free safety as well. So I think that they're good in the secondary. Cowboys have a lot of unknown. I think that the scheme is going to help out a lot. They were playing through the football last year defensively and not getting their head turned to the football that was taught. I don't like it. You have Chido Awuzie, who is more of a ball hawking type guy, and he was not good at playing through the football and through the hands of receivers. So I think you're going to see a better overall year from him. And then, with the young guy, Trayvon Diggs, there's a lot of really nice things that we're hearing out of him from camp. I think that he is going to take his lumps as a rookie as well, especially against a wide receiver core like the Rams have. I think that he might have some issues. And then the Cowboys safeties just aren't very good. Xavier Woods is actually a decent free safety, definitely over, starting caliber. But Darian Thompson, a guy who wasn't even starting over Jeff Heath last year. So I am afraid they're definitely afraid of what might be going on there.
Yeah, it was definitely surprising for the Cowboys to not scoop up Earl Thomas by now. I'll just say that. But no, I definitely hear you there. I really like, the ability that Trayvon Diggs has. Obviously, cornerback position, as a rookie, as you saw, if you can do it, I mean, it's worth it because Jalen Ramsey's making $21 million a year. But if you can't, you're going to get exposed pretty quickly. It's a tough position. I wouldn't be surprised to see him struggle, especially against guys like Cooper Kupp and Van Jefferson and Robert Woods, Josh Reynolds, Tyler Higbee. Now, here's the thing. Looking at this game, do you have any stat predictions? Anything jump out at you that you want to put your name on right here with some audio to back it up, Dalton?
So yeah, I do think at the end of the day, one of the 2 quarterbacks will go over 300 yards, whichever team is losing the football game. I think that whoever is winning the football game, that quarterback will have an efficient day, but not have a massive day statistically. I don't think it's going to be a particularly high scoring game in week 1 because I do think that there will be some ebbs and flows, especially, with the Cowboys, they might start off a little bit slow. And so I think we're not going to see any of the Rams running backs go for over 100 yards. I think that the Cowboys are really going to do what they can to stop that rushing attack. I do think Ezekiel Elliott overall will have 100 yards on the ground. I don't think Tony Pollard most likely will have, a massive game. I don't think that'll get a ton of touches. I think that CeeDee Lamb is going to have his first 100-yard game. From everything I'm hearing out of camp, he just looks different. I mean, we're talking about in camp, a guy who I've heard has looked like Dez in his prime when it comes to the impact that he has had on the field in camp. And so I'm going to buy into the hype. I'm going to say Jalen Ramsey is going to shut down Amari Cooper. It is a road game. Amari Cooper's road and home splits are massive. He is not good on the road for whatever reason. That continues this week. And CeeDee Lamb gets over 100 yards and has a touchdown.
Hey, those are some pretty intense predictions, but definitely all of those seem viable to me. Personally, I kind of feel like this is going to be a game where the running backs don't see that much success, and I think that it's going to be low scoring game as well. Which kind of brings me into the final score prediction, because I originally had the Cowboys winning this game when I did like a whole article predicting every game back in May, and I just felt like the Cowboys were going to win a close one over the Rams. However, I've kind of changed my stance on this. I do think the Rams will win 28-21. But there is a part of me that thinks it could be the Cowboys winning 28-21. But I'd love to hear, your final score prediction.
Yeah, so I made my prediction last night on the radio. I think that it's going to be a lower scoring game. I think both offenses struggle a little bit out of the gates. And I think that it's going to end up being 28-17. And I do think that the Cowboys are going to end up winning this game. This might be a little bit of, a homer pick at the end of the day. But when I look at these two teams, I see a ton of talent on the Cowboys side of the ball, and I think that they can do enough with this defensive line because the one thing we haven't talked about in this game is that the Cowboys throw 4 or 5 bodies on the defensive line that can legitimately rush the passer, which is something that the Cowboys really haven't had in quite a while. And I think that does enough to slow down this Rams offensive attack just enough. 28-17, I think it's kind of a comfortable win. But I do think that at the end of the day, we're not going to look back and say, wow, the Cowboys dominated the Rams, because I don't think that's how it'll be. I think that it'll be kind of close all the way up until the end.
Yeah, so it's this is a game that is going to be probably the highlight of the week, in my opinion. I know, people were really excited to see the Chiefs and the Texans, but I think it was more so, the lack of football. So, I don't think that, when they announced that was the best possible matchup, especially after they traded away DeAndre Hopkins. So I'm not only going to give you a prediction, but I also think that this game is going to be a way better product on the field. And like, we said at the beginning of the show, Dalton, the product on the field for the Chiefs and Texans wasn't bad for being the first game of the year without preseason and with kind of a crazy offseason. So, with that being said, I look at, 2 factors here. The first, the Rams actually have somewhat of a returning offense. They did add to that offense, and I think that's definitely going to help, especially in the form of Kevin O'Connell, who's been working extensively with Jared Goff. So one can hope that's going to help. I think you have to look back at the last quarter of the season. Last year, the Rams, when they started to gel on their offensive line, things started to go very well. Goff had over a 90 passer rating during that time. Tyler Higbee emerged. Things looked good. The Rams started to actually put together some quality offense and some quality football. So coming in this year, obviously you lose Wade Phillips, you add Brandon Staley. I told you, I think the defense is a wild card, but I do like the overall potential. I think that they might have a little bit of a hiccup here and there, especially in their first game. But at the same time, it does kind of equal out because, the Cowboys are also going through a new coaching regime. So in a sense, the Rams have more personnel that have come back from the prior season. I like the Rams in this game. I could see Dak Prescott, leading a charge late and winning the game, but I have the Rams winning 27-24. I do think kind of the wild card here is how much the Rams do keep from last year, because everyone's forgetting the Rams had 2 guys that were key to getting them to the Super Bowl, 2 seasons ago. And that was Coach Bones Fossil, the special teams coach, who I believe is the best special teams coach in the league. He's now with the
excited. I'm so excited to have Bones around. Man, I mean, we were 31st in the league last year in special teams. We were terrible.
I hear you. I mean, having Coach Bones Fossil, you never felt like, I mean, you feel like any play you're going to, throw a trick play in there and go for it on 4th down. And that, anytime, like, obviously, the Colts don't have Johnny Hecker, who I believe is the best punter ever. But, what his ability and the way, like, the guys that he gets the Gunners. I mean, it felt like every punt that Hecker had was inside the 5. Just such a disciplined special teams unit. So with that being said, I don't know how much the Rams have changed. Obviously, I'd imagine they've changed a decent amount because, I'm sure, I mean, Bones Fossil, if he has the intel, he's going to give it to to his team. And furthermore, Greg Zuerlein, who sent the Rams to the Super Bowl in the 2018-19 season, Greg Zuerlein is also the kicker for the Dallas Cowboys, but I have Samuel Sloman, the new kicker, winning it at SoFi Stadium 27-24. Endings seem to be a little weird with the Rams and Cowboys. The last time they played, it was at, Cowboy Stadium, and it was a blowout. The time before that was the playoffs. And then the time before that was at Cowboy Stadium, and the Rams kind of rallied back and won that game. And then the time before that was in the preseason, which was the first inaugural game back at the Coliseum. And Sean Mannion led the Rams back with Nelson Spurs to win that game in the final minutes. So maybe there's some final minute magic here. Anyway, I have 27-24. Rams winning this game, but I still think both of these teams are playoff teams. I think at the end of the day, CeeDee Lamb, I just said it yesterday on Twitter. I said, CeeDee Lamb, this is my hot take for the rookies. CeeDee Lamb, I had Henry Ruggs, Brian Edwards, Jerry Jeudy, all are going to go over 1,000 yards this year in receiving.
Whoo, that would be wild. That's a lot.
Yeah.
That's a lot of guys. I mean, that would be awesome. I think the most unlikely out of all of them would probably be Henry Ruggs, just because the type of player that he is. And with Derek Carr and that offense, I don't know how well they'll be able to really use him. But I love Brian Edwards, and I love Brian Edwards in that offense as well, so I could see that one. Jerry Jeudy might be a little difficult just because I don't really enjoy Drew Lock all that much. I mean, he's a fine quarterback, but they also have
Alexis
another. Well, it is what it is. He's got a great arm. He has some progressions that he has to make as a quarterback at the NFL level, and not to say that he can't do it. I don't think that it's as detrimental as somebody like Josh Allen, who a lot of people like as well, but as a pure passer isn't just all the way there yet. But yeah, I mean, I can definitely see CeeDee Lamb getting 1,000 yards. It's really tough at the end of the day sometimes for these receivers to actually do it. But with two other really good wide receivers on that offense, and kind of like the same thing with Jerry Jeudy, when it comes to the weapons that he has around him as well, that could open things up for him. So I can see it.
Yeah, I definitely can see it.
I'll be hoping.
I definitely can see it. And what I will say is if Van Jefferson was in the position that those receivers are in, I think Van Jefferson would go over 1,000 yards. Unfortunately for Van, or fortunately, depends on how you look at it, he's with Robert Woods, Cooper Kupp, Tyler Higbee, Josh Reynolds. Obviously, I think Daryl Henderson's going to be used enough in the passing game. Could argue Malcolm Brown and Akers, not to mention Gerald Everett. So, I mean, there's so many weapons there that I don't know if, predicting Van Jefferson over 1,000 yards is anything but just wishful thinking at that point. I mean, I think he's capable, but it's the volume. I mean, at the end of the day, I wouldn't be surprised if Jared Goff and Dak Prescott throw for over 5,000 yards this year. I would not. I mean, I really wouldn't. I think that they're both capable of doing it and they have the weapons. It's just, is there enough time in a game to even do that?
Yeah, I think that it would be, pretty easy depending on how the season goes for Dak Prescott to do it. It would be a little bit more surprising with Jared Goff, just because for as much of a genius as Sean McVay is, he still really does like to run the football. And I think that he likes to run the ball more than, Mike McCarthy enjoys running the football. So I think if they're going to be up in enough games, if they really do end up going, between, 10-6 and 13-3, I don't think that there's going to be enough situations where Jared Goff has to really sling the ball around the yard to where he throws for 5,000 yards. but he's definitely more than capable of doing that.
Yeah, I mean, we'll see. I've been saying that, my the biggest thing of intrigue for me going into this season is Jared Goff, because, he's someone I think who's pretty, I don't know if I would use the term controversial, but people have a lot of differing opinions on him. And, I think if he were to go into the season and throw for 5,000 yards, that would be really good. And I think that would make Rams fans really happy, because I think he's kind of been a source of our anxiety since last season. So I am really excited to see what he does. And yeah, we'll see. I don't know, 5,000 yards, that would be an accomplishment.
Yeah, it definitely would. All right, well, that's gonna do it. Hey, Dalton, before we get out of here, before we end the show, where can my listeners follow you?
So definitely hit up Pro Football Network. That's where, I write 4 articles a week, 2 on the Cowboys, 2 on the NFL draft. I'm going to have, maybe another outlet as well that I will be writing for here soon, but I don't want to give any of that away yet until it's a sure thing. If I'm not writing there, I will be writing my weekly pieces on Dak Prescott's performances on BlueChipScouting.com. Which is the website that I own, but I no longer run. I have, quite a few people that do a great job over there of putting content out and kind of running that for me ever since my buddy Tyler kind of had a little bit of a health scare. He has not been able to, kind of run that site the way that he or we have wanted to, but they're still pumping out content over there. So the best way to do it is find me on Twitter. Also, follow me on Twitch. I do like all 22 stuff that I will live stream on there. And then I also play a ton of Warzone that you can come watch me be mediocre at. So I'm always doing something where you can find me on social media.
Well, hey, sounds like a plan. Guys, go follow him. Dalton, you've been amazing as always. Dalton's the first person I met when I went to the Senior Bowl back in 2017. And, we've been friends ever since. So appreciate you, man. Appreciate you coming on the show. And, well, we're going to enjoy this game. We'll have to talk afterwards.
Absolutely. Thanks for having me on, guys.
Yeah, thank you for coming on.